The day the financial aid grants were dispersed to our bank accounts, I was just about to wire the money to my hospitalized grandpa. Suddenly, a strange voice echoed right inside my head. The transfer system said, as long as someone consumes something I give them, I can quietly siphon away their money. Noah just got his financial aid drop today. Let's test it out on him. If the transfer actually works, I can finally use that cash to cop the designer suit I've been eyeing. That voice, it unmistakably belonged to my roommate Blake. Frowning, I was just about to turn my head to look at him when a chilled bottle of water was suddenly set down on my desk. Blake was smiling, his eyes curving with exaggerated warmth. Hey Noah, thanks for grabbing my packages from the mailroom yesterday. Have some water on me. A second later, his giddy inner voice rang in my ears again. Drink it. Come on, drink it. The second that water hits your stomach, your cash belongs to me. Looking at the poorly concealed greed and eager anticipation burning in his eyes, a sharp spike of fury ignited in my chest. That grant money was my grandpa's literal lifeline. Blake knew exactly what that money was meant for. With a completely blank expression, I reached out and took the bottle. You want to drain my bank account? Fine. I will let you drain more than you could ever possibly stomach. His inner voice was practically buzzing with impatience. Hurry up and twist the cap. You're killing me here. Just one sip, and that $5,000 is mine. I can finally secure those rare sneakers I've been obsessing over. I casually lifted my eyes to look at Blake. Thanks, man. How much was it? I'll Venmo you. Blake waved his hands frantically, his smile turning sickeningly sweet. Oh, come on. We're roommates. We live together. It's literally just a bottle of water. Don't insult me by bringing up money. Drink up, man. I just took it out of the mini fridge. It'll cool you right down. Venmo me? Are you an idiot? As long as you drink it, your entire $5,000 grant is mine. Trading a $2 bottle of water for $5,000 is the easiest scam of my life. I swept my gaze over him, taking in his entire outfit. He was wearing a brand new pair of limited edition sneakers today. Strapped to his wrist was the latest Apple Watch Ultra. His family's wealth eclipsed mine by miles, yet he was intentionally targeting the exact money meant to keep my dying grandfather breathing. I set the water bottle near the edge of my desk, my voice entirely indifferent. I'm actually not thirsty right now. I'll save it for later. The smile on Blake's face froze for a fraction of a second, but he quickly masked it, nodding enthusiastically. Yeah, sure thing. Just leave it there. Drink it whenever. This guy is so difficult. Why couldn't the stupid rule just be that he has to accept the item to trigger the transfer? Plus, it takes a full 2 hours after consumption for the funds to actually hit my account. So slow. But at least the system automatically wipes all the bank logs and leaves zero digital trace. That part is pretty sweet. I looked down at the plastic bottle resting on my desk, a glacial chill flashing through my eyes. You want to swallow my grandfather's medical funds? Then I will make sure you get a profound taste of what unchecked greed really costs. Right in front of Blake, I unzipped my backpack and shoved the bottle into the side pocket. I have to head to my campus job. See you. Blake nodded along, playing the caring friend. Don't work too hard, dude. Make sure you get some rest. Perfect. He took the water with him. As long as he takes a sip on his shift, that $5,000 is secured. The second the money clears, I am ordering those sneakers. I am so sick of watching other guys flex them on campus. I didn't bother looking back, tossing a vague hum of acknowledgement over my shoulder as I pushed the dorm door open and walked out. When I arrived at the university's main dining hall kitchen, the head chef, Maria, was already chatting away. This bisque right here, this is the main event. A massive tech billionaire who's attending the alumni gala today specifically requested it. Said he missed it from his college days. We used the most expensive premium ingredients for this batch. I'll save you a bowl later so you can taste it. Maria smiled warmly at me while continuously stirring the massive steaming industrial pot. I smiled back. Thanks, Maria. That sounds amazing. Staring into that giant vat of rich, aromatic soup, the corners of my mouth slowly curled upward. When no one was looking, I pulled the water bottle from my bag, unscrewed the cap, and poured every last drop directly into the boiling bisque. With the water safely disposed of, I immediately threw myself into my kitchen duties. The moment I pushed my dorm room door open later that day, the first thing I saw was Blake sitting perfectly upright at his desk. His eyes locked onto me instantly. They were burning with an intense, jittery urgency, like a predator that had been waiting hours for its prey to return. Before I could even take my backpack off, Blake jumped up and practically sprinted over to me. He was holding an artisan pastry from a high-end bakery, his smile looking completely strained, but desperate. Noah, you must be dead on your feet after working all morning. You have to be starving, right? I just bought this pastry. Grab a bite to hold you over. The very next second, his inner voice flooded my mind. I have no idea if he actually drank the water or not. If he didn't, I need to force him to eat something else. I can't risk it. Plus, if this works, I might not just get his financial aid grant. I might be able to siphon whatever wages he earned from his shift today too. Might as well drain every penny I can. Listening to his parasitic, bottomless calculations, a violent wave of disgust rose in my throat. I clamped down on my anger, letting a noticeable layer of frost enter my voice. I rejected him flat out. No thanks. I ate a staff meal in the kitchen before I left. I'm completely full. Blake's outstretched hand froze in midair. His overly eager smile collapsed instantly, and he awkwardly pulled the pastry back. He walked back to his desk in sullen silence. Tyler, our third roommate, was sitting on his bed. He had always thought of me as an antisocial loser, always looking for a reason to pick a fight. Tyler immediately seized the opportunity to play the hero for Blake. His voice dripped with aggressive judgment. Noah, what is your actual problem? Blake is trying to be a decent guy. He gave you water this morning, and now he's offering you expensive food because he knows you work hard. Why do you have to be such an ungrateful prick? I lifted my gaze to meet Tyler's, my voice perfectly level, but carrying an unyielding weight. I am not being ungrateful. I already thanked him for the gesture. I told him I already ate and I'm not hungry. Refusing food I don't want. Is that a crime now? Noah is so damn annoying. He's like a brick wall. He refuses to eat or drink anything I give him. If I knew it was going to be this much of a hassle, I would have picked someone else for the experiment. This is a massive waste of my time. Tyler wasn't ready to let it go. He crossed his arms and sneered, his tone growing even more mocking. You're just acting like you're above us. You never hang out with us. And you think just because you get top grades, you can look down on everyone else. Now you think you're too good to accept a simple favor? He paused, narrowing his eyes suspiciously. I bet you took that water he gave you this morning and threw it straight in the trash. I kept my eyes crystal clear, staring directly into his. My voice was calm and deliberate. Stop projecting your own toxic assumptions onto me. And for the record, I already drank the water. The moment those words left my mouth, Blake's dejected posture vanished. His pupils dilated with sheer electricity. He immediately forced his expression into a mask of friendly neutrality, stepping in to play the generous peacemaker. All right, guys. Tyler, back off a bit. Noah didn't mean anything by it. He's probably just genuinely full. We all live in the same room. There's no reason to start a fight over a piece of bread. Yes, it actually worked. He drank the water, which means that $5,000 is basically sitting in my pocket. Once that money clears, I am ordering the sneakers instantly. Then, I'll buy a bunch of premium snacks and drinks for Tyler and the other guys in the hall. I'll drain all their monthly allowances too. If I pull this off a few more times, I can finally upgrade to that top-tier graphics card. This is literally perfect. I watched his hypocritical, smiling face in silence. My brief lunch break ended quickly. I grabbed my uniform and headed straight back to the dining hall for the second half of my shift. By now, the morning sessions of the University Alumni Gala had concluded. All the invited guests, the university board members, corporate titans, and wealthy donors were being ushered into the dining hall for the catered luncheon. The hall was packed to the brim, humming with energetic conversation. Taking advantage of a brief lull in the kitchen, I discreetly pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. My balance read $0. The system's theft had successfully activated. By 2 p.m., the lunch rush finally died down. The crowd began migrating over to the main auditorium for the keynote speeches from the distinguished alumni. I changed out of my uniform and followed the crowd, taking a seat near the back of the auditorium. Halfway through the event, an incredibly successful tech CEO was speaking passionately on stage. Suddenly, a few frantic whispers broke the quiet atmosphere. Wait, why is my Apple Pay declining? I'm trying to pay for my Amazon cart, but it says insufficient funds. A girl sitting in the row ahead of me was staring at her phone in total confusion, her voice a harsh whisper. Her friend immediately leaned in, her tone laced with rising panic. Me too! My parents wired me $2,000 for rent just yesterday. I tried to order a coffee on the app and my entire bank account is completely empty. What is going on? More and more panicked murmurs began rippling through the rows of seating. Right at that moment, down in the front row VIP section, a corporate tycoon in a bespoke tailored suit shot up from his seat. He was clutching his phone, his face completely drained of blood. His voice trembled violently. Because he was sitting so close to the stage microphones, his panicked words echoed clearly across the entire auditorium, plunging the room into dead silence. This is impossible. My entire portfolio, millions of dollars just vanished from my accounts. Those words hit the room like a bomb. The crowd erupted in absolute shock and uproar. After a second of stunned silence, the auditorium descended into total chaos. Screams of disbelief and frantic questioning echoed off the walls. I just checked. My tuition savings are gone. I worked 3 part-time jobs for a year for that money. My rent money is completely gone. It wasn't just the students. Dozens of professors and faculty members were frantically jabbing at their phone screens, their faces turning ashen. My entire paycheck from yesterday wiped clean, a professor yelled, his voice cracking with disbelief. Several university board members were huddled together, staring at a tablet in sheer horror. What is happening? The university's operational fund, millions of dollars allocated for this event. It's all gone. A wave of pure terror swept through the massive hall. The carefully organized keynote event completely disintegrated into a chaotic nightmare. I sat perfectly still amidst the screaming crowd, slowly turning my head to look at Blake. Just a few minutes ago, when my specific grant money had hit his account, he couldn't stop smiling. His eyes had been glowing with the thrill of stolen wealth. But right now, as he watched the digital numbers on his banking app skyrocket into the stratosphere, millions upon millions of dollars flooding his account from every direction, the smug smile melted off his face. His skin turned a sickly, translucent white. What the hell is happening? Why is there so much money? Are all their missing funds? Are they all transferring directly to me? Blake slowly turned his head, his eyes wide with absolute, unadulterated terror, and locked eyes with me. I looked right back at his panic-stricken face, and I smiled. Just as the pandemonium in the auditorium reached a boiling point, the piercing wail of police sirens echoed from the campus courtyard. A squad of heavily armed police officers and federal agents stormed through the auditorium doors. Which one of you is Blake? We received an emergency alert from the Federal Reserve regarding massive fraudulent anomalies traced directly to your accounts.
The words hit Blake like a death sentence. What? His voice cracked so badly it barely sounded human. There has to be some mistake. I didn't steal anything. Hands where we can see them, one of the federal agents barked. The entire auditorium instinctively backed away from Blake, as if he were carrying a contagious disease. Students whispered frantically, "Isn't he the guy whose account got all the money? Oh my God, that's him. Did he hack everyone's bank accounts?" Blake's hands shook so violently that he almost dropped his phone. "I swear I don't know what's happening," he screamed. The money just appeared. An agent snatched the phone from his trembling hand. The screen displayed a balance so absurd that even the officer's expression changed. $23 million. Silence. Then another notification arrived. Plus $184,000. Another. Plus $3,700. Plus $58,000. Plus $2,100,000. The deposits were still pouring in every second. What the hell? One detective muttered. Another agent immediately shouted into his radio. The transfers are still active. Freeze every linked account immediately. Across the auditorium, phones continued exploding with notifications. My balance is negative now. My savings are gone. My business account. One elderly donor suddenly grabbed his chest. My retirement. He collapsed onto the carpet. Several medical staff rushed over as terrified screams erupted around him. Blake looked like he was seconds away from passing out himself. I didn't do this, he cried. I don't even know how. One investigator stared coldly at him. Then explain why every stolen dollar is being routed into your personal account. I can't. His knees gave out beneath him. The officers forced him onto the ground before snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Click. That tiny metallic sound echoed through the silent auditorium. I didn't steal it. Blake sobbed. The word stopped. His eyes suddenly widened. No. He couldn't admit what he'd actually done. How could he explain that he'd accepted a magical system telling him he could steal money simply by feeding people? Nobody would believe him. They'd think he was insane. Or worse, that he was inventing fairy tales to dodge prison. What? An agent asked sharply. Blake opened his mouth. Closed it. His entire face twisted with despair. I don't know. The lead investigator turned toward the crowd. We will require everyone who attended today's luncheon to remain on campus for questioning. The room erupted with groans. As people slowly filed toward the exits, I quietly stood as well. My phone vibrated. I glanced down. Balance, $0. Exactly as expected. Every cent Blake had stolen from me had vanished from his account the instant the bisque was served. The system had never said the transfer only affected one person. It simply said, anyone who consumes something I give them. One pot of bisque. Hundreds of bowls. Students. Professors. Trustees. Millionaire alumni. Billionaire CEOs. Every single person who tasted it had unknowingly become connected to Blake's system. And Blake, the fool, had accepted every transfer without understanding the consequences. As I slipped my phone back into my pocket, a furious roar suddenly echoed from behind me. Blake had somehow broken free long enough to point directly at me. His bloodshot eyes were wild. You did this. Every head turned toward me. The lead investigator frowned. You know the suspect? I met Blake's gaze calmly. He seems confused. You poisoned the soup. Blake screamed. You poured my water into the bisque. The auditorium fell deathly quiet. Several investigators exchanged sharp looks. One of them immediately asked, What water? Blake froze. His breathing stopped. He realized too late what he'd just confessed. If he explained why the water mattered, he'd have to explain why he'd given it to me in the first place. And the only motive that made sense was theft. A slow smile spread across my face. Officer, I said evenly, I think my roommate has something he'd like to confess. Blake's face lost its last trace of color. For the first time since receiving the mysterious system, he understood what it felt like to have absolutely nowhere left to run. The lead investigator's eyes narrowed. Start from the beginning. Blake's lips trembled. I. His gaze darted toward me, desperately searching for some crack in my expression. There wasn't one. He suddenly shouted. He sabotaged the soup. Check the kitchen cameras. He poured my water into the bisque. Several agents immediately spoke into their radios. Secure the dining hall. Pull every surveillance recording. Interview kitchen staff. Within minutes, the head chef, Maria, was escorted into the auditorium. She looked bewildered. What happened? An investigator pointed toward me. Did you observe him adding anything to the soup? Maria frowned, genuinely thinking. No. The bisque simmered for hours. Everyone was moving around the kitchen. I never saw Noah contaminated. Another cook shook his head. I didn't either. The investigator turned back to Blake. So your accusation is based on what? Blake swallowed. I saw him pour my water into it. You saw him? No. You just said he did. I knew he would. The room grew even quieter. The investigator's voice hardened. How? Blake's mind raced. He couldn't answer. Because there was no ordinary explanation. You just what? Blake stared at the floor. Nothing. He had nothing. Meanwhile, another agent hurried into the auditorium carrying a tablet. We've got preliminary banking records. Everyone looked over. The money trail is impossible. What do you mean? The transfers originated from thousands of unrelated victims. He scrolled rapidly. Students, faculty, private corporations, investment accounts, even overseas holdings. Another silence. It all converged into one destination. He turned the screen around. Blake Carter. Gasps spread across the auditorium. The investigator looked back at Blake. You expect us to believe every one of those people voluntarily transferred you their money? No. I don't know how it happened. Another notification chimed from the confiscated phone. Then another. Then another. Even after the emergency freeze order, tiny deposits were still arriving. The agent frowned. Interesting. What? They're getting smaller. He watched another alert appear. Plus $3.17. Plus $12.84. Plus $0.91. The massive transfers had stopped. Only pocket change remained. Another analyst rushed inside. We found the reason. Everyone looked up. The largest victims all attended today's luncheon. The remaining transfers are coming from people eating leftovers. Every head slowly turned toward the dining hall. A horrible realization settled over the room. People were still eating the bisque. The lead investigator immediately barked. Shut down food service. Seal every kitchen. Collect every remaining serving. Campus security sprinted from the auditorium. Blake's breathing became ragged. No. His system. It hadn't stopped. It was still stealing. Still funneling money into him. Against his will. The cheerful electronic voice suddenly rang inside his head. Congratulations. Transfer efficiency has increased by 4,972%. New hosts detected. 846. Continuing automatic collection. Blake nearly screamed. Stop. Only he could hear it. Insufficient permissions. Host voluntarily activated mass transfer. I didn't. His shout echoed through the auditorium. Everyone stared. One investigator slowly asked, Who are you talking to? Blake's face drained of all color. The voice continued. Current account balance, $41,862,119. Estimated balance in 10 minutes, $58 million. No. The handcuffs rattled violently as he struggled. I don't want it. The system responded with the same emotionless tone. Host satisfaction not required. Transfer in progress. Watching him unravel, I finally understood something. The system was never designed to make someone rich. It was designed to punish greed. The more Blake wanted, the more it gave him, until the amount became so impossible that it destroyed every part of his life. His friends, his future, his freedom, his reputation, everything. As federal agents dragged the sobbing Blake toward the exit, he twisted around one last time. Our eyes met across the auditorium. His lips moved silently. You knew? I held his gaze, then gave the slightest nod. For the first time since this nightmare began, Blake truly understood. The $5,000 he'd tried to steal from me had just cost him everything. 3 days later, Blake's face was everywhere. Every news channel, every social media feed, every financial website. University student linked to largest unexplained banking anomaly in history. $42 million frozen during federal investigation. Authorities search for source of mysterious mass transfers. The university suspended Blake indefinitely. His dorm room was sealed off with evidence tape. Federal agents carried out box after box of electronics, notebooks, hard drives, even the clothes from his closet. They found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. You couldn't confiscate a supernatural system. Tyler, on the other hand, looked like he'd seen a ghost. He cornered me outside the library. Noah. His voice lacked all of its former arrogance. I didn't know Blake was whatever he is. I kept walking. He hurried after me. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. You were just trying to be polite. I was an idiot. I stopped. Tyler almost walked into me. He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. I've been thinking. When Blake offered everyone food and drinks all the time, I thought he was just generous. He swallowed. Was he trying to do the same thing to everyone? I looked at him quietly. I don't know. It wasn't a lie. I didn't know how long Blake had planned to keep using the system. Tyler looked sick. I ate with him almost every day. He stared at his own hands. What if? He couldn't finish the sentence. I simply walked away. There was no point answering questions neither of us could prove. That evening, I visited my grandfather's hospital. He was sitting upright for the first time in weeks. Color had finally returned to his face. The surgery had been successful. The hospital had eventually received my payment after federal authorities temporarily restored verified victims' stolen funds while the investigation continued. My $5,000 had come back. Grandpa smiled the moment he saw me. You've lost weight. I laughed softly. You say that every time. It's because it's always true. He reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry you've had to shoulder all of this alone. I shook my head. You getting better is enough. He smiled. For the first time in months. It reached his eyes. When I returned to campus, my phone vibrated. An unknown notification. There was no app icon. Just black text on a white screen. Host Blake Carter has permanently lost qualification. I stopped walking. Another line appeared. Searching for compatible successor. My heartbeat slowed. Then, the screen flashed. Candidate found. My stomach tightened. The next sentence appeared one letter at a time. Current compatibility, Noah Evans. I stared at the phone. A final message appeared. Would you like to inherit the transfer system? Yes. No. 2 buttons. Nothing else. No timer. No explanation. Just a choice. I stood there for nearly a full minute. Then my thumb moved. Without hesitation, I pressed. No. The screen went black. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the phone vibrated once more. Request denied. Searching for next compatible host. The message disappeared forever. I let out a slow breath. Whatever that thing was, it hadn't chosen Blake by accident. It had looked for someone consumed by greed. Now it was looking again. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Somewhere, someone else was about to receive an offer. And I could only hope. They made a better choice than Blake had. Blake's epilogue. The first night in federal custody, Blake didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw numbers. Balances. Transfers. Deposits. Millions. Hundreds of millions. The digital voice never stopped. Transfer successful. Transfer successful. Transfer successful. He slammed both hands over his ears. Shut up. The concrete walls answered with silence. The voice didn't. Current balance. Frozen. Transfers continue to be redirected to government seizure accounts. I said shut up. The guard outside his cell glanced through the narrow window. Keep it down. Blake laughed bitterly. If only it were that simple. His lawyers came. Then they left. Again. And again. Each meeting ended the same way. Blake, we need you to explain where the money came from. I don't know. How was it transferred? I don't know. Did someone help you? I don't know. Eventually, even they stopped believing him. His parents visited once. His mother cried before she even sat down. His father never did. He simply stared through the glass. I spent 20 years building this family's reputation. His voice was cold. You destroyed it in a single afternoon. Dad, you'll have the best legal defense money can buy. For one brief moment, hope flickered inside Blake. Then his father continued. Not for your sake. Blake froze. Our company cannot survive being associated with a convicted financial criminal. His father stood. When this is over, don't contact us. The phone clicked back into its cradle. His father walked away without looking back. His mother followed. She never turned around either. Weeks passed. Then months. Investigators never found malware. No hidden servers. No cryptocurrency wallets. No accomplices. Nothing. The official reports repeatedly used the same phrase. Mechanism of theft, unknown. Blake remained the only explanation anyone had. Late one night, lying awake on the narrow prison mattress, Blake suddenly whispered into the darkness. Why me? For the first time in months. The system answered. Host inquiry accepted. Blake bolted upright. You can answer? Yes. His heart pounded. Why did you choose me? Several seconds passed. Then, evaluation records located. Words slowly appeared across the darkness of his mind. Candidate observed accepting gifts while calculating profit. Candidate demonstrated repeated willingness to exploit trust. Candidate expressed satisfaction after imagining theft from friends. Candidate scored 99.97% on Greed Compatibility Index. Blake's breathing grew uneven. No, the voice continued. Primary qualification was not intelligence. Primary qualification was desire. I wasn't. He stopped. Because that wasn't true. He remembered the water bottle, the pastry, the calculations, the excitement, the plans to steal from Tyler, from everyone else in the dorm, the expensive shoes, the graphics card, the luxury clothes. He had never needed any of it. He had simply wanted more. Always more. His shoulders began to shake. The system delivered its final evaluation. Host never once asked how victims would survive after losing their money. Blake closed his eyes. He saw Noah again. Protecting money meant for his grandfather's surgery. Money Blake had tried to steal without a second thought. His chest tightened. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of prison. He wasn't afraid of the investigators. He wasn't even afraid of the future. He was ashamed. Real, suffocating shame. He buried his face in his hands and quietly cried. No one heard him. Not the guards. Not the other inmates. Only the emotionless voice inside his head. It remained silent. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Long before Blake ever put that bottle of water on Noah's desk, the system had already judged him. Everything that happened afterward had simply revealed the person he had chosen to become.